Alright guys, so here I am with the Leopard fruit. I have gotten the most mastery that I really needed for it. And here are all of the skills that I'll be going over. But first, I should mention some of the general information about it. So first of all, it is a beast fruit, as you might expect, as well as being a mythical. And since it's a pretty high value fruit, it is 3,000 Robux if you want to buy it like that, which by the way is the same price as the Yeti, which is arguably better, but we're gonna be going over that later. But to give it some credit as well, it is 2 years old, so it is kind of only a little bit outdated. And funnily enough, the best update it has received over the years is a model change for the fruit, which every fruit got anyway. So that's kind of funny. So let's just go over all the abilities, go into some of the pros and cons, that kind of stuff, and that will help me decide whether or not this fruit needs a rework. Alright, so let's first go over the untransformed abilities. First of all, you got Finger Revolver. So it is suggested to hold down when you do this, and honestly, for a Z ability, it is quite powerful. So that's always good to see. Next is a spiraling kick. So that's less damage than the Z ability, but it is knockback, which, I mean, it's not necessarily great for grinding because of that, but this is mainly used for PvP and that kind of stuff. But here is After Image Assault. That's the C ability. So that is more damage than the spiraling kick, but still less damage than the Finger Revolver. So here's Body Flicker. This is the last ability before we get into the transformation. So it's kind of like a little dash, similar to what the Yeti has. But anyway, here is the transformation. So it has a pretty nice little animation there. Again, very similar to Yeti, but honestly I should be saying that about Yeti because it did come out after. But anyway, here is what this thing looks like. What's funny is that I also get to keep my hat on, so that's a pretty cool addition there. Honestly, I kind of mess with that. But anyway, here are all of the abilities with the transformation. So that right there was more damage for the Z ability, but unfortunately visually nothing really changed, nor mechanically, honestly, which does kind of disappoint me a little bit. Here's Spiraling Kick. So again, more damage, but mechanically nothing has really changed. Here's After Image Assault. So that one did change, and as you can see there, it did do a lot more damage. Still less than Finger Revolver, but that I'm pretty sure is supposed to be like the main ability for this fruit. And now we can get into the Body Flicker, and then you can talk about the M1. So here's the Body Flicker. So it is more mechanically unique than the other abilities, because it does like do a kick. Funnily enough, the Spiraling Kick doesn't do a kick. Well, it does, but it's not like as defined. So yeah, those are all of the abilities. Here is, by the way, the M1, because for some reason the untransformed version doesn't have an M1. That's a little disappointing, but the transformed version does have an M1. So here's what that looks like. So Yeti does have a very similar little ability there, but the only difference between this and Yeti is that Yeti has two of these like AoE attacks, while Leopard only has one. That's definitely a little difference there. So those are all the abilities. Now let me go into all the pros and cons about the fruit. So first off, let's start with the pros. So basically all of the abilities have a good damage output. You saw their Finger Revolver, around 6.3 thousand damage. Spiraling Kick, it's decent, you know, it's nothing crazy, I believe this is actually supposed to be the AoE attack, spiraling kick, pretty decent as well. I can definitely see combos with this fruit though if I'm being completely honest, ever since Yeti came out, I genuinely have not really been crazy about this fruit. However, there are buffs that Yeti doesn't have, and that one of them is this speed boost, and I believe there's also a jump boost here. I can't really tell. There's definitely speed boost, and that right there is actually a lot, so that's much appreciated. Damage to Sea Beast, not exactly better than Yeti with that, because Yeti does have the ability to stand on water, unlike Leopard. And last but not least, I get to keep my hat on. It's a pretty good buff. I really appreciate that. I just realized, why do the teeth look human? But anyway, let's get into the cons. So first of all, the attacks when transformed and untransformed are very similar, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose of being transformed. You kind of expect to have different abilities. I mean, look at gas, for example. Basically everything except for the smog demons has changed, and even the smog demons look much cooler. Here, the only ones that changed are After Image Assault and Body Flicker. Those are the only ones that actually changed. So if this fruit does eventually, hopefully this year, get a rework, one thing that I love to see is the changes in skills, at least. Well, honestly, the problem isn't really even the skills themselves, it's the fact that they don't really change. That's mainly the thing that I want to see in a possible rework. Another thing is that it's expensive, but I can't say that it's necessarily worth the money that you're paying for it. Because with Yeti, for example, it's the same price, but you just get so much more out of it. You have a completely different skill set, basically, and even though the skills are pretty similar, at the same time, they're very different, especially visually. But again, it's not that I blame the fruit itself for this. It is old compared to Yeti, so that's definitely something that I love to see changed within a rework. And honestly, I wouldn't even mind like a price change, as long as the fruit is better. And again, because of all the stuff that I mentioned, the skills aren't exactly the best. I can't say that it's very good for grinding. The knockback is pretty big. I mean, yes, it has AoE attacks, but again, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for grinding. It's alright for killing NPCs. PvP though, I imagine that's a completely different story. I imagine that in PvP, Leopard is really good. That's probably why there's still such a high demand for it compared to Yeti. But honestly, I don't really see it to be as spammable as Yeti. So that's kind of the main difference there as well. Now, this is kind of just a visual thing, but the model is just a little bit outdated. The animations are like pretty smooth, especially like dodging or dashing rather. It is kind of smooth, and I do appreciate that. But the model is outdated, and honestly, I'd like to see it changed. And honestly, just within a rework, if that ever happens, I could definitely see some chromatic skins being added to this thing. The developers really like those, it seems. But yeah, honestly, it being pretty old and Yeti being so new, I don't completely blame the fruit for being so outdated, because it literally is compared to other fruits, especially now with new metas like gravity, you know, perhaps dragon, even though dragon got nerfed like 50 times now. Even with that, I do think that this fruit, this kind of stand out as at least a little bit unique, just slightly. But again, if you used Yeti first and only now start using Leopard, you can definitely see that there is a very big similarity between all of that stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this fruit. Quick summary of everything that I've said so far. Skills are pretty much all the same, transformed and untransformed. The speed definitely gives it a little bit of extra use So, however, it being so expensive, costing nearly $30, it's just that one thing that really takes away from it being such a good fruit. So TLDR, I definitely say that a rework for Leopard would be very appreciated. I know that we didn't exactly get it with the last rework update, but the developers did promise us to have more than one update a year now, so maybe it's possible, maybe it's not, hopefully. But with all that said, this has been Board Barrel, and I'll see you in the next video.